It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. Like, it's after poop. Sup, though? I'm gonna poop after this video, best believe. Selling item, then
I remember it like it happened yesterday. Meanwhile.
Okay. Alright, hold on. Yeah, definitely gotta poop.
It happened almost 8 years ago.
Right.
I had finally been able to get a gaming PC for myself and switch over from consoles. That meant I had a PC that still...
What is so special about the PC versus the console? Is it just the graphics or is it a lot more than that? Let me know in the comment section below.
Fine, but was just sitting to the side and collecting dust. So I decided to sell it on Craigslist for a really cheap price, just to get it out of my apartment. After a few days, I found someone who was interested. He said that he worked at a golf course that wasn't too far from my house, so we made plans to meet up on the next day that he worked. The day came, and I loaded the computer and the monitor in the passenger's...
Hey, that's a stick shift. That's what's up. Hey, shouts out to anybody that knows how to drive a stick shift.
...of my car and made my way to the golf course. As soon as I pulled in, I saw a man who was wearing a red polo like most of the other employees, and he flagged me down since he knew the car I was driving in. I pulled up next to him and let him take a look at the computer. He said he liked what he saw, handed me the $65 that we agreed on, and I was ready to head home. As I got in my car though, he pulled his phone out and reacted as if he got some bad news. He looked at me and told me that his mom couldn't pick him up from work and that he was going to have to walk home with the computer.
Yeah. Well, that seems like a personal problem, and I do not know your ass. So best of luck to you. Chip, chip, cheerio, nigga. Sorry, not sorry.
He asked where he lived, and he said it was right around the corner. So I told him that I could give him a ride and hop in. At first, he seemed a bit weary. I don't blame him, but in the end, he decided to go for my offer. He led me in the direction of his house, or so I thought. As we headed down a road, I noticed that there were no houses. Something wasn't right. It was like he could tell that I was growing suspicious. The man quickly pulled a yellow box cutter out from his shorts pocket. It was at that moment that I realized that he wasn't wearing a name tag like the other employees, meaning he was just dressed like one. I had been fooled. He told me to pull over. I begged him to not do anything. I would cooperate. He took my phone and my wallet. I asked him if he wanted my keys, and that was when his whole attitude changed. He looked at me and began screaming. He swung the box cutter at me, and at first I thought he missed. I didn't feel anything at all, but then I felt the warmth on my face. He had cut right across it, and blood had begun to pour out. I passed out, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in an ambulance. Apparently, someone who had been walking their dog found me laying on the side of the road after the man had forced me out and taken my car. I ended up needing 27 stitches, and I have a scar that never lets me forget that day.
Damn. I would have never. Come on, bro. Come the hell on.
If there's one thing to take away from my story, it's that even if you're in between jobs, always vet the place that is hiring you. I've been looking for fresh work as a landscaper and found myself in the job section of Craigslist. And to my luck, I was able to find a few solid clients that needed work done. I began work for all of them, and everything seemed great. The only issue was that one client clearly had a problem. They were hooked on substances. What kind? I can't be sure. But he was always having people come by so that he could pick up his product. I should have cut ties then, but I needed the money and tend not to judge people on how they spend their free time.
I do.
This case was different, though. I shouldn't have been involved, and it ended up making me the suspect in a murder case. I ended up being cleared, and they caught the actual killer, but I will never live that down. I was at the man's house cleaning up the yard, but
God damn! Look at his jeans. It almost looked like they're made like that. Oh my God.
found myself needing to use the bathroom. I normally don't do this, but I asked the owner if I could use his bathroom. He was more than happy to let me in. He saw no problem with it. It was while I was in the bathroom that I heard his front door get thrown open. I heard yelling, followed by 2 gunshots. I was frozen. I had no idea what to do. I ended up climbing out of the bathroom window and running to the next door neighbor's house. I banged on their door and begged them to call the police. I explained what happened, and they let me wait in their garage for the police to arrive. After surveying the scene, they informed me that the homeowner was killed and that I was the only one around when the act happened. And since I was working off the books for people, it seemed suspicious. I ended up being questioned on 4 different occasions, one of which they told me I was the prime suspect and that my number was in the owner's burner phone for some reason. I was happy to hear that they finally caught the actual killers, but I'm not going to be working off the books for anyone ever again. That's for sure.
My ass.
Do you know how they say that hindsight is 20/20?
I've never heard that.
Looking back on that day, the more I think about what happened, all of the signs were there from the beginning. It was 2006. I had just turned...
So not really? All the signs were there from the beginning, so you just chose to overlook all of the signs? Got you.
24 and finally got in a home for myself. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small 1-bedroom home. But it was a home, and I was proud of it. I had just graduated from college and landed a solid job at a small accounting firm, so I finally had a way to earn some money. That being said, I was still in the process of saving up, so at the time, I was essentially living paycheck to paycheck, like most people. In order to make a little bit of extra money, I was in the process of selling things that I didn't need anymore, a lot of which was being sold over Craigslist. I had managed to sell a few cheap paintings and piece of furniture that I owned on the site, so I figured it was a good place to start. I posted a few items, and it wasn't long before I had a response. Someone had emailed me about buying an old cell phone, and as luck would have it, they were able to meet that day. I didn't like the idea of meeting at my house or at their house, so I asked if they would mind meeting at a local diner. He agreed, and we were set up to meet later that day. The time came and I grabbed the phone and his charger, got in my car, and made the 15-minute drive to the diner.
And you grabbed something to protect yourself with, right? Right?
As I pulled in, I noticed that it wasn't as full as I expected it to be, which was nice. And I didn't think anything of it at first, but the more I tell this story, the more I realize that I noticed a white Ford Taurus parked next to a red Chevy Impala. As I said, I didn't think anything was strange about it at the time. I pulled into a parking spot that was close to the door, and I texted the buyer to let him know that I was there. He said he would be at the diner in a few minutes, so I just turned on some music and waited. After a few moments, a white Ford Taurus pulls into the spot next to me, and me and the buyer made the exchange. Everything went fine. We both said thank you and headed our separate ways. As I made my way home though, I noticed something odd. I had made a few turns along the way, and I could swear that I was being followed by a red car.
Okay.
Again, I made no connection to the car in the parking lot. As I got closer to my house, I grew more and more concerned that something was wrong. However, one intersection away from my house, I noticed the car turned down one of the side roads. I was relieved to make it home, safe and sound. I made my way into the house and made sure to lock the door behind me. I threw some leftovers into the microwave and got ready to settle down for the night. After dinner, I hopped into the shower and began to get ready for bed. I would have gone to sleep as if nothing was wrong had I not remembered that I left the curtains to the living room open.
Come on!
I don't like the idea of someone being able to see inside my house, so I went to close them. I paused when I got to the window though, because I could have sworn I saw something in the road. It was at that moment I realized that I was looking at a car that had parked at the end of my driveway. I froze. My first instinct was to look to the door, and it was still locked, thankfully. I then quickly made my way over to the light switch to the front porch, and I could see the car as clear as day. It was the red car that had been following me, a red Chevy Impala. To my horror, the car was empty. I didn't know how many people there were, or where they were, but someone was outside my house for some reason. I pulled my phone out and quickly called the police. I explained to the 911 operator what the issue was, and they assured me that someone was on the way and asked me to stay on the line. That was when I heard them, the sound of multiple people walking along my porch. I turned out my light, but it didn't scare them away. I tried to poke my head around the corner to the window without being seen, hoping that I could catch a glimpse of who was outside. To my horror, one of the men was standing with his covered face pressed against the glass trying to look inside. As soon as my head came around the corner, we made eye contact.
Oh my God.
He didn't move at first. All I could think to do was to say, "Police are coming. You better get out of here right now." I tried to sound stern, but I honestly probably sounded like...
Why'd you say that? Like why? Why? You couldn't just be silent or just say nothing at all and just let the police come up?
a sniveling child. It was like clockwork though, and almost right after I finished my sentence, I could see the flashing lights coming down the road. The dispatcher wasn't lying. Someone was actually right down the road. The men noticed the lights and took off to their car, but they didn't make it in time. The police were in the driveway and the three men were taken into custody. I recognized one of them as the man who was driving the white Ford Taurus. The police said, "This sort of thing happens all of the time when people use Craigslist."
It's Craigslist. What do you expect? I hope none of y'all use Craigslist. Jesus. It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. I'd be damned if I have a friend named Craig. Jesus. It's Craigslist. I don't know if any of you all ever use Craigslist. But let me know if you ever use Craigslist and how your interaction, how your situation, how your experience went down, because I've never used it. I do not plan on using it. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.